Hello and welcome to Bangladesh Today. I'm Mugdha Kapoor. In this week's episode, we have a report on US President Barack Obama cutting off long-time trade benefits for Bangladesh in a response to the conditions in the country's garment industry. Also in this week's episode, we have British politician Murad Qureshi hailing the war crimes trial in Bangladesh.
In an announcement recently, President Obama said that Bangladesh was not taking enough steps to afford internationally recognized worker rights to employees. The Obama administration basically mentioned increasing reports of violations of health, safety, and employment rights in the country's garment industry. This cutoff of trade benefits will invalidate the brakes on tariffs that the US gives Bangladesh under the Generalized System of Preferences, which is a World Trade Organization program. However, the US step does not directly have an effect on Bangladesh's multi-billion-dollar clothing exports since garments are not entitled for US duty cuts. But this could influence the European Union into an akin action which would deal a considerable blow as Bangladesh's clothing and textiles exports to the EU are duty-free. Anisul Haq, a garment factory owner and former president of Bangladesh Garments Manufacturers and Exporters Association, said that he did not expect the move to have an instantaneous impact on business, but dreaded it would spoil US investments in the country over time.
We are very cautious. Right now, it doesn't have so much of economic impact because we only export $50 million under the GSP facility. But the perception or the views that will be taken over by the buyers all over the world, by the policymakers all over the world, by the facilitators who gives us these duty-frees all over the world from different countries has got tremendous value.
The Bangladeshi factories came under global spotlight after the collapse of the Rana Plaza garment factory building in April this year that had killed 1,132 people, and the Tazreen factory fire in November last year that killed 112 workers. In general, the wages here are paltry and working conditions and safety regulations are much below the international average. For long, Western apparel buyers had depended nearly exclusively on China to source their products. But labor shortages and swelling wage pressures encouraged them to search elsewhere, and now Bangladesh has become a key player in the market.
I think all of us, we are cautious. The government is working, we are working. The labor law, which is a very important factor played behind these GSP issues, and the labor compliance, security, and the accidents that has happened. We all are alert, we all working together towards it, and we hope that we will bring back this withheld position to a running position, again get back GSP.
US Trade Representative Mike Froman has also said that the US will start fresh discussions with Bangladesh on improving workers' conditions so the duty-free benefits that cover thousands of products can be reinstated.
Bangladesh's garment industry, which accounts for 80% of the country's $24 billion annual exports, has become the base of an economy that was once reliant on financial assistance. Will these tough measures affect the US's investments in Bangladesh in the long term remains to be seen. And now the second report. British Labour Party politician and a member of the London Assembly, Murad Qureshi, has hailed the trials of 1971 war criminals in Bangladesh.
Recently, Labour Party politician Murad Qureshi, whose late father Mushtaq Qureshi was also a Labour Party leader and was a freedom fighter in the Bangladesh War of Liberation, supported the war crimes trial being held in Bangladesh. Murad Qureshi said that the present Sheikh Hasina government had a crucial role to play in this and that it was clearly given a mandate to initiate a trial of war criminals in the elections of 2008.
Been a very eventful year so far in Bangladesh. It's yes, largely down to the war crimes tribunals, going back to an issue which has always been left outstanding, and I do think it's imperative that needs to be dealt with. The serious allegations that genocidal crimes were committed against Bengalis in the liberation of Bangladesh in 1971. The present government was clearly given a mandate to deal with this in the election of 2008 and explains part of the success they had in the urban centres. So as and when the pronouncements of the judgments were being announced, it was always going to be interpreted and read in certain ways by both secularists and Islamists. Well, fundamentally, there's no doubt the Holtars and what have you haven't helped at all. They may suggest they've got legitimate grievances about the procedures of some of these cases. I, to some extent, don't have any problems if the possibility of retrials is there. But let's also not get away from the reality is that this has to be dealt with, and I think some of them harbour this suggestion that if they riot enough on the streets, they can get their people acquitted. That isn't going to happen. There are people who have waited a long time for justice and deserve that and merit it, whilst the suspects allegedly involved in those horrific events have largely lived life to the full.
The War Crimes Tribunal that was set up in 2010 was mandated to indict the guilty, even though 10 of the 11 on trial for rapes and genocide during the Bangladesh Liberation War belonged to the Jamaat-e-Islami, an ally of the opposition BNP.
Jamaat was always like that. It is not new for Jamaat to behave in that way. It is not new for Jamaat to act violently. It is always a violent organization. It has been a violent organization since its inception. If you look back in the British era, when we were under the British colonial rule, when Jamaat was born, when Maulana Maududi was the founder, he founded this party, this organization, and his main approach, his theory, his teachings to all his disciples was like that violence, Islam needs violence. And this Maulana Maududi, he was opposed by the then Islamic scholars of that time. All the famous Islamic scholars of the subcontinent, they opposed Maulana Maududi that no, this is not Islam. This Islam is a peaceful religion, it believes in peace, it believes in development, it believes in education, it believes in spiritual development and harmony of all the people of the society. It does not believe in segmentation of the society. It does not believe in communalism, but Jamaat believed it. And this is Maulana Maududi who introduced this bad and black theory in our culture, in our religious culture. Our Islamic saints and Darwesh, Pir, Fakirs, our Sufi saints, they were not propagating violence in the name of Islam.
The tribunal has so far sentenced prominent Jamaat members like Abdul Kalam Azad, Dilawar Hussain Saidi and Kamruzama to death and Abdul Qadir Mullah to life imprisonment. It has also ordered trial against former Al-Badr members Ashraf Uzzama Khan and Muinuddin Chaudhry, who are in absentia. The sentencing of Saidi sparked off nationwide violent protests by the Jamaat and its student wing, the Islami Chhatra Shibir, who alleged that Saidi was sentenced to death because of the statements of the Hindu witnesses. The Hindu community bore the brunt of the Jamaat anger in many parts of the country after the sentencing.
This is election year. There's meant to be an election before January 2014. The suggested date is the end of December. So this is an important prelude to those elections. So it's been fought party politically between the Awami League in government and the BNP in opposition on the streets. And a lot of the events and the manoeuvres can be explained like that. So, for example, the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, have traditionally been in with the Islamists, the Jamaat Party, and they are in this case again as well. There are other Islamists who are less keen on the parliamentary process, who are making their demands made on the streets through the Long March. But the secularists have been hanging on to the Shahbag demonstrations, which essentially arose because they were afraid that a lot of people charged with these allegations could well be acquitted. Yes, it was alarming for people in the West to hear secularists arguing for the death penalty. The real fear was actually deals will be done behind the scenes, which will get people off the hook. I think what is quite interesting is that in 1947, there's no doubt Bengali Muslims in East Pakistan were saying Pakistan Zindabad. But within a generation, within half a generation, they were saying Joy Bangla in 1971. So there was a great disappointment in what the Muslim state of Pakistan had offered. We have a majority Muslim population, and I think we shouldn't forget the minorities as well. We've actually been losing our Hindu population substantially since 1947 and 1971, and more recently as well, moving essentially to West Bengal next door in India. I can't see why it's not possible to have a Muslim majority country defending the rights of minorities in a secular context. I think it's much more difficult to have it the other way around. I think what we have in Pakistan sometimes with discussions of who's a Muslim and who's not, which is essentially the argument with the Ahmadiyas, the Shias and what have you, is something I don't think Bangladesh needs to deal with. What it really needs to deal with to go forward is the tragedy of the building collapse in Sabah and the threats that poses to the garment industry. Bangladesh's future is an economic one, and it's important that it gets back up to those 6-7% rates of GDP growth that it was doing annually. I've got no doubts all the events in recent time have not helped, but justice needs to be brought as well for the country to move forward.
The tribunal's verdict to sentence Abdul Qadir Mullah to life imprisonment and not death ignited public ire that was propelled by social activists who use social media as a revolutionary tool to organize mass protests and raise awareness of the movement.
Actually, it is the people, not the government, who should face this type of evil forces. Government is just a caretaker of the people's emotions and people's visions, expectations, etc. And what I feel that the people should come forward first to face this type of religious fundamentalists, these fanatics. They should oppose all these fanatics, and then government has a role, of course, to honor the sentiment and emotion of the people. Government has a role to achieve the objectives of the country. We want Bangladesh a prosperous, exploitation-free, poverty-free, illiteracy-free Bangladesh. This Bangladesh, we have a dream that this Bangladesh will be technologically based. This Bangladesh will be not a very poor country. It will be a middle income country. It will be a democratic country, and social exploitations will not be there. Exploitations by the rich will not be there. Exploitation by male will not be there. So it is a country we are all the people of Bangladesh, we are demanding, we are having a vision of this type of country. Now these fundamentalist forces, Jamaat Islam or other fundamentalist forces, they want to bring the country backward, to pull the country backward, and because if this happens, if all the people are being educated, all the people gets proper education, food and exploitation free society, jobs, etc., their fundamentalist politics will be ruined. There will be nobody to support this type of fanaticism, this type of violence, this type of fundamental activities. Our people, they want to live in a communal harmony. We want that Bangladesh.
Thousands gathered in the Shahbag area of Dhaka, staging rallies and protests. This electrifying movement was soon compared with the Tahrir Square movement of Egypt. Only here they were supporting the ruling government for its bold measures.
With the continued pressure from different quarters around the globe, it is imperative for the Awami League government and the International War Crimes Tribunal to ensure that no criminal gets away and justice is meted out fairly. More on that in the coming episodes. Thank you for watching Bangladesh Today. Hello and welcome to Bangladesh Today. I'm Mugdha Kapoor. In this week's episode, we have a report on US President Barack Obama cutting off long-time trade benefits for Bangladesh in a response to the conditions in the country's garment industry. Also in this week's episode, we have British politician Murad Qureshi hailing the war crimes trial in Bangladesh.
In an announcement recently, President Obama said that Bangladesh was not taking enough steps to afford internationally recognized worker rights to employees. The Obama administration basically mentioned increasing reports of violations of health, safety and employment rights in the country's garment industry. This cutoff of trade benefits will invalidate the brakes on tariffs that the US gives Bangladesh under the Generalized System of Preferences, which is a World Trade Organization program. However, the US step does not directly have an effect on Bangladesh's multi-billion-dollar clothing exports since garments are not entitled for US duty cuts. But this could influence the European Union into an akin action which would deal a considerable blow as Bangladesh's clothing and textiles exports to the EU are duty-free. Anisul Haq, a garment factory owner and former president of Bangladesh Garments Manufacturers and Exporters Association, said that he did not expect the move to have an instantaneous impact on business but dreaded it would spoil US investments in the country over time.
We are very cautious. Right now, it doesn't have so much of economic impact because we only export $50 million under the GSP facility. But the perception or the views that will be taken over by the buyers all over the world, by the policymakers all over the world, by the facilitators who gives us these duty-frees all over the world from different countries has got tremendous value.
The Bangladeshi factories came under global spotlight after the collapse of the Rana Plaza garment factory building in April this year that had killed 1,132 people, and the Tazreen factory fire in November last year that killed 112 workers. In general, the wages here are